Australia's vaccine rollout, it's been a little sluggish, in part due to supply, in part due to vaccine hesitancy.
Vaccine hesitancy.
Vaccine hesitancy.
Vaccine hesitancy.
Vaccine hesitancy.
Vaccine hesitancy.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. With that new buzz phrase filling the airwaves, former Chief Medical Officer Brendan Murphy is now blaming the media's sensationalist reporting for Australians' reluctance to roll up their sleeves. And while we don't entirely agree, this report from Seven's Gold Coast News last week certainly did take fear and craziness to the next level.
My body is just going, no, like, we are not a stand for this. So my business is not a stand for this.
The holistic hairdresser believes being around anyone who is vaccinated could impact her health.
From what I'm reading and hearing is that it's coming through sweat, it's coming through spit, it's coming through the air, so it's being shared.
Yep, that Gold Coast hairdresser told social media she's banning any customers who have had the COVID vaccine. Seriously. And 7 News not only gave her views some massive free PR, they also cited praise for her position.
What a stance. You are an inspiration to so many of us facing this exact dilemma. Well done. No doubt more businesses will follow.
To its credit, Seven did make clear that doctors had rubbished the idea and included this for good measure.
Completely absurd and ridiculous.
But next day, the crazy and incorrect claim that vaccinated people can harm a woman's reproductive health was given a national platform on Nine's Today Show.
Yasmina Adler, the owner, yeah, that's right, Alex, says the concerns about side effects from the vaccine and wants the store to be a safe space for women.
And from what I've been, seeing, reading and speaking to other women about is the viral effects this shot seems to have on our reproductive health.
And unlike 7 News, Today had no warning about the dangerous misinformation that Adler is spouting, unless you stuck around for a panel discussion more than 1 hour later.
OK, I think we should be clear here, though, that there is no such health advice.
Look, it's actually quite dangerous and irresponsible.
So why put it to air? Adler's absurd theory also made international headlines as the Mirror in the UK and Newsweek in the US jumped on the story. And on radio, Adler was also given oxygen by 2SM's John Laws, but at least he gave her a hard time.
Do you know what the TGA is?
Yes,
What is it?
it's insurance and covering us as individuals.
You don't have any idea, do you? If this were dangerous, it would not be permitted.
Who knows? We'll see what happens with this experimental
Oh, dear, dear, dear.
couple of years.
Well, Yasmin, my dear, that's a cop-out if ever I heard one. We'll wait and see what happens. Wouldn't it have been good if we had to wait to see what happened with mustard gas in the First World War?
But there was much less pushback from politician-turned-Sky News host Cory Bernardi, who simply wound Adler up and let her run.
It's, for some reason, affecting women just by being around people who have had it.
With Bernardi telling viewers at the end of the 5-minute interview,
You know, Yasmina, that's entirely your right. I'll defend your right to do that. I don't actually agree with the theory behind it in this case, but it's your business. You can make the rules as you see fit. That's in my world anyway.
well, that may be your world, Cory, but giving airtime to such dangerous nonsense is not what the media should be doing, and even Facebook recognises that. Back in December, Adler was flagged by Facebook for suggesting COVID vaccine causes female sterilisation. And last May, she was pinged for sharing a meme that claimed wearing face masks causes carbon dioxide to build up in your bloodstream. As for TV coverage of her latest medical bulletin, vaccination expert Professor Julie Leask told Media Watch,
There are a few reasons why it is better to not air these stories in this way. It gives this false claim much more airtime than a single Instagram post might. The news value here appears to be in getting attention, outrage and clicks rather than serving audiences.
So, in simple words, please stop. But now, to Melbourne and another ugly tabloid stoush over drug injecting rooms.
Police union traders plea.
Please don't make us junkie town.
Flinders Street injecting room fury.
Yes, there's nothing like demonising drug addicts to sell a newspaper. And on Wednesday last week, the Herald Sun was in rare form. Or as the ABC's Michael Rowland described it,
The Herald Sun has absolutely excelled itself with its headline today. It's just an irresponsible headline, in my personal opinion. I mean, there are pros and there are cons to this story, but don't run with a headline like that.
Irresponsible? Certainly. And not just with that headline. Inside, there was a double page of outrage.
Injecting strife into city heart.
With senior writer Patrick Carlyon making the paper's position quite clear.
It sounds like an episode of Utopia. Let's build a safe place for the most betrodden members of society. And let's put it where millions of passers-by will be exposed to the worst in human nature.
Really? The worst in human nature? But it wasn't just one day of outrage. The Herald Sun gorged on the story all week, having cooked it up on Monday with this scoop.
Nightmare on Flinders Street.
Exclusive. Secret drug injecting room plan in tourism heart of city.
That, the paper said, was according to key sources, whoever they may be. And while the government insists it's only consulting on a possible CBD site and has taken no decision to locate it there, that did not stop the Herald Sun, whose story worried talkback callers all day and then scared TV viewers that night.
There's a new outcry over the latest suggested site for a second drug injecting room.
Businesses surrounding the proposed area are furious.
Maggie, the proposal is dividing opinion.
And with all that reaction, the Herald Sun knew it was onto a winner. So on Tuesday, another front-page attack.
A Peak business group is demanding small traders within 1 kilometre of a planned CBD drug injecting room be paid compensation.
More angry businesses, angry residents and an angry opposition leader. But again, no room to canvass the undoubted health benefits. And that morning, Sunrise took the story national.
Happening now, injecting room fury. The outcry in Melbourne over plans for another drug centre.
And Seven had yet more angry business operators and media commentators in furious agreement.
Absolutely, they have a right to be concerned. I mean, this is a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad idea.
And after Wednesday's Junkie Town, the Herald Sun had even more scaremongering on Thursday.
The drug ice will be allowed at Melbourne's new supervised injecting room as residents surrounding the first centre sound the alarm.
As that story eventually pointed out, ice is already allowed at Melbourne's first injecting room in Richmond, where it made up only 2.5% of drugs injected in the first 18 months. Then on Friday and Saturday, more screaming headlines, angry columns and an editorial demanding councillors reject any CBD facility and not pander to the minority. In all, 18 stories and columns across 7 days in the paper. But injecting rooms are always anathema to the tabloids wherever they are. The Herald Sun's been running negative stories on the Richmond injecting room ever since it opened. And its sister paper, the Daily Telegraph, ran a similar campaign against the first Sydney facility, as MediaWatch reported way back in 2006.
These are the photographs that shame the so-called safe injecting room in King's Cross. Dozens of syringes spilling from a bin in a public street.
As MediaWatch revealed at the time, the Telegraph was told the injecting room did not use that type of needle, but ran the story regardless. It turned out they belonged to a diabetic cat. And despite all the tabloid outrage, surveys show the King's Cross injecting room is popular with 2/3 of businesses and residents, and a success, as is that first facility in Melbourne, as Nine last week acknowledged.
In its first 18 months, the safe injecting room at North Richmond recorded 119,000 visits. Among those, staff safely managed 3,200 overdoses and saved at least 21 lives.
And according to Dr Marianne Jauncey, Medical Director of the King's Cross injecting room, that ties in with experience from around the world.
There are more than 250 peer-reviewed publications in the medical literature showing the benefits of such services. We now know, incontrovertibly, that they save lives, make a difference to people's lives, take public injecting off the streets, reduce needle litter in the streets, and provide a gateway into treatment and support services. Crucially, they have no negative impact on crime, and they have a positive return on investment. Put simply, they work.
You'd think the Herald Sun might be able to find more space for such good news. But no, it merely amplifies the cries of the injecting room's opponents. And we asked the Herald Sun to respond, but they didn't bother. But now, to the latest trials of Bernard Collaery, the Canberra lawyer, on official secrets charges. He could face 2 years in jail if he is convicted. Last June, as a Canberra court was considering, in secret, whether his case should be heard in secret, the 76-year-old former ACT Attorney-General told MediaWatch,
I just sat there in court thinking, on occasion, are we in Moscow?
Last week, Collaery was back in court in Canberra to appeal that decision that his trial should be held in secret. And a crowd of supporters was there to cheer him on.
Thank you so much for coming. It lifts my spirits.
So, how did he go? Well, I think you know the answer. The appeal was held in secret too, and while the judges haven't yet made a decision, neither Collaery nor his lawyers can tell us what happened in court. So we don't know what arguments were put forward by the government or even what it wants to keep secret. Crazy, eh? But we do know that Collaery's alleged offences hark back to a spying operation in East Timor 17 years ago and involve an ex-ASIS officer called Witness K, who has already pleaded guilty. As the ABC's Adam Harvey explained on 7:30 last June,
Bernard Collaery's sin to reveal that Australia bugged East Timor's government officers in 2004 to gain advantage in crucial oil and gas negotiations worth billions of dollars. Collaery had been told about the spying by his client, an ASIS officer known as Witness K.
And amazingly, we can show you a copy of the summons against Collaery, which was not delivered until 14 years later. It charges that in 2013, Collaery and Witness K disclosed secret information to East Timor to aid its case against Australia in the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague. But it also reveals that 4 out of the 5 charges concern interviews Collaery gave to the ABC after his Canberra office was raided by the security services on 3rd of December that year. Shortly after that 6-hour raid by the AFP and ASIS, Collaery told ABC Radio's Peter Lloyd in great detail about what had happened at his offices and what documents had been taken. That night, he told Late Line's Emma Albert-Ricci about the secret bugging operation and how it had been done, including how bugs were placed in the wall by spies posing as Australian aid workers. Next day, he told ABC 7:30's Connor Duffy who at ASIS had ordered the operation. And 3 months later on Four Corners, he told Marion Wilkinson and Peter Cronau he wanted a judicial inquiry into the spying op, which is authorised by Alexander Downer and George Brandis. Now, none of those ABC journalists has yet been charged with any offence. And amazingly, more than 7 years later, their interviews are still up on the ABC website. And that is extraordinary, given that the government claims they reveal matters of national security and that Collaery's trial over these matters needs to be held in secret too. Collaery has said repeatedly he has no intention of naming any spies or detailing their methods, telling Media Watch last year he agrees those things should be secret.
If it becomes relevant, the identity of any of the players, techniques, dates, times, places, any of that matter can be suppressed.
But what Collaery believes should be public is the story of Australia's alleged illegal spying operation against a friendly nation for commercial advantage, where Collaery claims the revelations would not damage national security but would embarrass some politicians. Who would be embarrassed if it were to be made public?
I'm not able to traverse that because of the restrictions I'm under the National NSI Act. I can't answer that. Of course, I would dearly love to.
So, how will it play out? Well, that is now a matter for 3 judges in Canberra who are expected to hand down a decision in the next couple of months. If Collaery wins, the trial may or may not go ahead in public. If he loses, Collaery will appeal to the High Court, causing further delay. Collaery is already 76, and since those 2013 raids, his life has been in limbo, leaving him angry and confused. Last year, he told Media Watch,
"It's a bad dream. It's ruined my practice and everything I've worked for. Be different if I felt that I'd done something wrong. It's sheer, unadulterated, vindictive injustice as far as I'm concerned."
And one piece of good news in all of this, when the judges reach their decision on whether the trial should be held in open court, it will be made public. And finally, to the BBC, and a damning report that exposes the deceit, deception and cover-up behind Martin Bashir's exclusive interview with Princess Diana 26 years ago.
In 1995, Panorama got a scoop its rivals the world over wanted. It changed history.
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
Now, an independent inquiry for the BBC has found that reporter Martin Bashir used forgeries to get the interview, deceiving both Princess Diana and her brother.
The 127-page report by retired Judge Lord Dyson is devastating for the BBC. It found Bashir mocked up fake bank statements to deceive the Princess and her brother Earl Spencer, repeatedly lied to his bosses about what he'd done, and that a subsequent BBC investigation into his actions was flawed and woefully ineffective. But even more damning, it finds the BBC effectively covered up Bashir's deceit.
They did not scrutinise Mr Bashir's account with the necessary degree of scepticism and caution. They knew he had lied 3 times when he said that he had not shown the fake statements to Earl Spencer.
Worst of all, the BBC silenced those who tried to blow the whistle, like former Panorama reporter-producer Mark Killick.
People passed up what was going on to senior management, and senior management, as Lord Dyson shows very clearly, operated a smear campaign against them and then covered it all up. And that sent a message to the BBC staff, I think, that you can't speak truth to power.
It is scathing stuff, and perhaps it's no wonder the former BBC chair Michael Grade calls it
one of the worst chapters in the BBC's history, in my view.
And writing in the Daily Mail, a publication that has long sought answers about the Diana interview, a scathing verdict from another former BBC journalist, Andrew Neil.
The BBC stood by its story and reporter for more than 2 decades, repelling and dismissing any who dared to challenge. It scaled the moral high ground during the great Fleet Street phone hacking scandal, all the while drawing a veil over its own cesspit.
And what of Prince William? He says the BBC let down the public, his family, and of course his mother.
She was failed not just by a rogue reporter, but by leaders at the BBC who looked the other way rather than asking the tough questions. It is my firm view that this Panorama programme holds no legitimacy and should never be aired again.
Martin Bashir has now resigned. The other key players have moved on or died, and the BBC has apologised. But there's no doubt the public broadcaster's reputation is irreparably damaged, and it could suffer greatly from the fallout, not least in a review of its charter due next year. That's all from us tonight. There's more on our website, where you can read more from Dr. Marianne Jauncey and harm reduction specialist Greg Denham. And don't forget, Media Bites every Thursday online. But for now, until next week, goodbye.